Hello and welcome, students, to the Sociopedia channel. Today, we are jumping right into Class 11, Chapter 5, Doing Sociology, Research Methods. So, let's begin, shall we?
All right, let's kick things off with a really big question. Think about it. We all live in society, right? We know the rules, we get the culture. So what on earth makes a sociologist's knowledge any different? How can what they know be considered scientific when we're all swimming in the same social water? What's the secret sauce?
Well, the answer, surprisingly, comes down to just one single, powerful word: method. See, it's not really what a sociologist knows, it's all about how they know it. They follow these really strict, systematic procedures to gather knowledge, and that is what separates their work from, just everyday common sense.
Okay, so before a sociologist can even think about starting their research, they run smack into a huge hurdle, and that is staying objective. This is what we call the objectivity challenge.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. On one side, you've got this ideal of objectivity, just the facts, totally unbiased. But on the other side, we have our own subjective world, full of personal feelings and values. Now think about it. A chemist can be pretty objective about chemicals, right? But a sociologist? They're studying the very society that they are a part of. Their own beliefs, their culture, all their biases, it's all tangled up in what they're trying to study. That makes being truly objective a massive challenge.
So how in the world do they even try to deal with this? Well, they use this incredibly powerful technique called reflexivity. And this is a total game changer. It basically means they are constantly turning the lens back on themselves, always examining their own ideas and their own biases. It's really about trying to see their own research through the eyes of the very people they're studying.
All right, now that we've got a handle on that main challenge, let's open up the Sociologist Toolkit and see what's inside. And the first tool we're going to pull out is one of the most immersive ones: participant observation.
The goal here, as you can see, is to learn about the whole way of life. And this isn't about watching from a distance with a pair of binoculars. Oh no! The researcher literally becomes part of the community, living right there among the people, to understand their world from the inside out.
And let me tell you, this is a serious commitment. We're talking about living in that community for a year, maybe even more. You've got to learn the language, take part in everyday life, all while documenting everything. You're mapping the area, you're tracing family trees, you're taking these incredibly detailed field notes every single day. A really famous example of this is the work of the anthropologist Bronislaw Milanovsky in the Trobriand Islets. I mean, he showed just how deep this kind of field work can really go.
So, okay, what are the pros and cons here? The big strength of this method is the unbelievably rich, detailed insider view you get. It's amazing. But the weakness? It's all about scale. You can only do this kind of deep dive with a really small group, which means you can't really take what you find and say it applies to a whole country.
Okay, let's move on to the next tool in our kit. This one is all about capturing the big picture, the survey method.
All right, take a look at this number, 0.06%. What do you think that represents? It seems so tiny, right? But trust me, there is a massive story behind it. That tiny number? It perfectly shows the incredible power of something called sampling. India's National Statistical Organization, the NSO, uses a sample of just 0.06% of the population to accurately figure out what's going on with over 1 billion people. That's the magic of sampling, right there. A small, super carefully chosen group can tell you all about the whole.
But how do they make sure that tiny sample is actually scientific and not just a fluke? Well, it all comes down to two key principles. First up is stratification. This just means making sure all the important subgroups, like people in cities, people in rural areas, different age groups, are all represented in the sample. And second, randomization. This is crucial. It means making sure every single person has an equal, totally random chance of being picked. Kind of like a lottery.
So the survey's biggest strength is that you can take your results and generalize them to a massive population. It gives you that bird's eye view. But its weakness? It's a lack of depth. You get the big picture for sure, but you often miss the individual stories. You miss the why behind all those numbers.
Okay, our third and final tool for today is the interview. Now you can think of this as this really flexible, conversational method that tries to find a nice balance between the deep dive of observation and the huge scale of a survey.
So what is an interview when we talk about it in sociology? It's basically a guided conversation between the researcher and the person they're talking to, the respondent. And it sits in this perfect middle ground, right between the really strict questions of a survey and the totally open-ended nature of observation. And its main superpower is just how flexible it is. The researcher can rephrase a question if it's not clear, they can change the order of topics if the conversation flows that way, and, this is so important, they can dig deeper when someone says something really interesting. This kind of flexibility is just perfect for adding that much-needed depth and context to what you might find in a big, broad survey.
So, we've looked at these three very different tools. And the natural question is, okay, which one's the best? And the truth is, there is no single best method. Not at all. The choice always depends on the research question you're asking. It's all about choosing the right tool for the right job.
And this table right here, it's the perfect summary. It lays out the trade-off so clearly. You can see participant observation gives you that super high-depth, qualitative data, but only on a tiny micro scale. The survey, it gives you that quantitative data on a huge macro scale, but with very low depth. And the interview, it sits right there in the middle. This is a really great table to keep in mind for revision.
And hey, if you want to get some detailed notes for this chapter to help you study, make sure you check out our Telegram channel. The link is right there for you in the description below. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Now that you know the tools, how would you go about studying your own school or your workplace? Which one of these methods would you pick, and what is it that you'd want to find out? It's your turn to start thinking like a sociologist.